Today is for one of you here. And I know this for a fact because what I'm about to preach was not what I've been working on and planning to preach all week until yesterday. And it became clear that this is what needs to happen today. And that can only mean that it's for you. Either you're here today and this is like, I don't even know why I'm here. Might be why you're here. Or you're always here, but God has something for you. But I want us to step into this with some expectation. And I'm going to start by telling you about a boy who was born blind. His name was Bartimaeus, and as an infant, he didn't even know what blindness was. He didn't know he was missing out on anything. And it wasn't until he was in his toddler years that he began to realize that he couldn't do this thing that his brothers were talking about called seeing. He would sit there in the privacy of his own mind and try to imagine the colors that his brothers spoke about and what they look like. But how do you imagine a sunset or a sunrise that's gold and a sky that's blue when you've never seen any of those things? I mean, he longed to see the face of his mom and dad most as a young child. And he would sit there and he would hold his mom's cheeks, seeing her the best he could. And of course, he cried because he couldn't take part of the games when he learned what it meant for him. And it wasn't just him who cried. Bartimaeus learned that his mother's cheeks were also stained with tears as he would feel those. And he grew up in a time in a society where there was no assistance for him. There was no intervention for Bartimaeus. He didn't get scholarships. He didn't get treatment programs. His brothers got apprenticeships. At the age of 13, they went and worked in the places where they would make a life, but there's no apprenticeship for Bartimaeus. And it was his mother who passed first. And years later, his father. And somewhere in there, Bartimaeus succumbed to the life that he always knew was ahead of him, begging. And each morning, he would sit up on that dirt bed and shake off the raggedy blanket before wrapping it around himself as a cloak. The cloak he had was his one true possession in life. It was given to him years earlier by a kind stranger, and it's smelly now. It's worn out. It's dirty, but it's his constant uniform, whether he's asleep or whether he's begging, wherever he is. And in the early days of his begging, Bartimaeus, he was friendly, he would smile, he would talk, he would even joke. Sometimes he would sing on the street corner where he would spend 12 hours sitting. But over time, his speaking and his jokes turned to just pleading with people as they walked by. And then, just silence. He didn't have the heart to even plead it. He would just sit there silently and downcast, accepting his life and whatever the people would put in front of him. He had once had hope for a different life at one point. But all that hope over the years, it's long gone. Like what do you do, honestly? What can you do for a man like Bartimaeus? He was born in a time, in a society where his difficulties were insurmountable. He sits on the corner. His face is a mask of emotionless numbness. He's resigned to his place in his cloak. This is his life, and this will be his death. Now, the chances are you're not blind, and the chances are you're not a beggar today. But you have places in your life that, just like him, I would guess you wish were different. And maybe you were born with something that you have just never been able to fully overcome. More likely, like most of us, along the way through life, from childhood even, you began to pick up some wounds, some hurts, some patterns, and some dysfunction. And those things have changed you. And they've affected you even now in your current relationships. Some behaviors and reactions you have based on those things hurt others, ended relationships, or more likely, we have vices. We have vices, and like Bartimaeus, we have stopped promising ourselves that we'll quit them, haven't we? You stop promising you'll quit your vice because you know yourself. And any day after, or when your willpower runs out, it'll start again. We have insecurities that have crippled us more than we let on. It changes how we view ourselves. It changes how we view the world. It diminishes us. And for many of us, anxiety is actually our constant cloak. Like Bartimaeus, it's there when we wake up and we wrap it around us for the day. And it's our companion throughout the entire day. For others, depression has sunk in and stolen the color from our vision. I mean, in many ways, we have become beggars for joy and panhandlers for peace, looking for anything the world would give us. Left with this haunting sense, as I talk to so many people, that there's got to be more than this. There has to be some kind of purpose, some sort of mission, or something that brings fulfillment. So while we don't think of ourselves as blind Bartimaeus, the beggar, if we're honest in moments of clarity, we can admit there are places of desperation within us that we long for change. This morning, if you're like me, there's places in your life where you want freedom, where you long for healing. And if you're like me, there are times where you get desperate enough to reach out. Finally, something will happen enough, and you're like, I gotta get help. And you'll reach out to something for help. But most of the time, we just quietly just wish things would change. That maybe God would intervene, circumstances will shift, our spouse will change, our life will change, we'll hit the lottery, anything that would change it. And today we're gonna look at a person who desired a new life, desperately wanted to be transformed. And my prayer is that by the end of this message, that each of us will have taken a step of faith towards God, who stands before us with outstretched arms of love. So look at with me in the book of Mark. And Jesus is walking toward Jerusalem for the last time toward the cross. Mark 10:46. Then Jesus and his disciples spent some time in the city of Jericho, and as they left together with a large crowd, a blind man named Bartimaeus was sitting by the roadside begging. Now, I oftentimes tell you, don't just read past the story, place yourself in the story, see it, feel it, experience it. And just from a few cultural contexts here, we learn something about Bartimaeus' life. He's not inside the city, is he? It says he's outside. And this tells us a lot of what we need to know about how he is viewed and how he views himself. He's become a social pariah in the city. He has worn out his welcome with the local people. You see, the people who are there all the time, they grow tired of seeing the same beggar day after day, but then year after year, and the goodwill dries up. So he moves outside the city because that's where you encounter travelers. That's where you encounter strangers. And you beg for charity from other people. It's defined his entire existence. This life that he lives of darkness. It's darkness, of course, physically as he's blind, but it's also darkness relationally. It's cut him off from relationships. It's also darkness socially and emotionally. And so we read this, the next verse. When Bartimaeus heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth coming toward him, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Now, I want you to catch something here. The word for shout is krazo, which sounds a bit crazy, right? It's a raspy, desperate, guttural cry. It's not just loud, it's desperate. He begins to yell. Another interesting thing we see here is what he yells at Jesus. He says, "Son of David." Now, you may know something about the Bible, maybe at least Christmas. And who's Jesus' dad? That's Joseph on earth, right? That's his earthly father. What does the Son of David talk? You know, Son of David comes from the Old Testament prophecies that the Messiah will come from the line and the lineage of David. Son of David means Messiah. That's what it means. So catch this. This dusty, hot afternoon. The disciples and the crowds are traveling toward Jerusalem. And a homeless blind man starts calling Jesus Messiah at the top of his lungs. And I want you to see this. This is the first ever recorded public proclamation of Jesus as Messiah. Now, it's been discussed with Peter in a small group, But this is the first time that in a huge crowd, there's been this kind of talk. And Jesus, in a huge crowd of people, in a huge crowd, it's Bartimaeus who's blind that has spiritual 20/20 vision to see Jesus for who he truly is. Now, if you're a disciple of Jesus, imagine you're one of the 12, right? You're close. Or you're on the next level out. You're part of this traveling church, okay? And you see a blind, ragged, homeless beggar desperately, crazo, yelling at your rabbi. How do you respond? They responded just like they did at other times in their journey with Jesus. What they did is they keep Jesus separated from the unsavory people. They begin to put themselves as gatekeepers between the needy and between God. We read this. Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet. You can imagine Peter saying, man, pipe down. Can't you see we're doing Jesus stuff here? Like we're on a mission from God. We don't have time for this. Or some people saying, oh, someone get this beggar out of here. We have more important things to do with Jesus. We don't need to be slowed down by this kind of distraction. And this is the ugly side of religious judgment. That the people who could see are keeping the blind from Jesus. That those who are healthy are standing between Jesus and the unhealthy. This is the people who were on the journey with Jesus, keeping the one who needed Jesus the most away from him. Think of the reality of this situation. See the situation clearly. There is one place on the entire planet Earth that Bartimaeus can get to receive his sight back. There's one person alive on the earth that Bartimaeus could have actually talked to who could have made his brokenness whole. There's one small, like 1 by 1 foot swatch of dirt that Bartimaeus could have stood on to have his eyes restored. And it was the ground right in front of Jesus. And those who knew Jesus and those who could see him clearly positioned themselves to keep Bartimaeus from that place. This isn't the blind leading the blind. This is the seeing rebuking the blind. Orchard, may this never be true of us. May we, the Orchard, be a people who don't let our judgment keep those who need Jesus from Jesus. May we as the Orchard be known as a living invitation to bring them closer to Jesus. I mean, if anything, we are here in a position to illuminate and invite and point people to the presence of Jesus. You see, there's a world of Bartimaeuses out there. They are spiritually blind. They are eternally needy. We live with them. We work with them. We recreate with them. Do you keep them separated from Jesus? Oh, no, I don't do that. I don't do that. You know, we might not consciously do that, but sometimes it is our silence and inaction that keeps them separated. Or our belief that those people shouldn't be in this church. We don't want the theys and thems and whoever they could be. We're guilty of this, but may it not be true of this house, of this people. You see, the disciples, they rebuke Bartimaeus. It says, be quiet, many of the people yelled at him. Like, pipe down. But he only shouted louder, Son of David, Messiah, have mercy on me. He refused to be quiet and only got louder. Did you ever wonder why? All this social pressure. Why did he get louder? Why did he yell crazo? Why was he so desperate? You see, I believe that for the first time, Bartimaeus was seeing the light of hope rip through his existence. And his desperation for rescue overcame any concerns of who was around him. You remember the story of this man. Throughout his lifetime, nothing could be done for him, but he hears about this holy man, this rabbi who's healing people. He hears he can do what no one else can do. In fact, he heard about Bethsaida, probably, just happened recently. At Bethsaida, Jesus had healed a blind person. And I'm sure Bartimaeus thought, Could that be the same for me? Of course, everyone had heard about what happened at the pool of Siloam. A man who was born blind is now walking around Jerusalem telling people that Jesus guy healed me. Could that be me? You see, Bartimaeus may be dressed in a raggedy cloak on this day, but his heart is wrapped in something fresh, something new, something that changes everything, something he probably hasn't felt in a long time: hope. Hope is one of the most powerful forces on the planet. And Orchard, where have you given up hope? Where have you given up hope? For yourself, for healing, for freedom? Where have you given up hope in your life? And notice something important here. Bartimaeus doesn't just sit passively and silently, just wishing. Jesus is close. He's right here. This is his chance. He cries out, Jesus, Son of David, Messiah, see me, have mercy on me. What if Bartimaeus had remained silent? What if he had remained culturally appropriate? What if his pride and his fear had not let him cry out? What if he had said nothing? I don't think I'd be preaching about him right now. I don't think we'd know his name. So the question is, be honest, where are you waiting for Jesus to move in your life? Like where? Are you passively just wishing? Is your hope buried in silence? Because there are places in our desperate desire for freedom that we need to call out in faith and in prayer. Jesus, heal me, see me, have mercy on me. Those are the things that we desire most. We cry out in faith. Bartimaeus did so even though the social norms of the culture told him just to be quiet. His need was that great. Bartimaeus' heart longed to be touched by Jesus more than he cared about the condemnation of other people. His need for rescue outweighed his need for others' approval. And oftentimes it's in these places, in these seats, where our desire to get the approval, to not stand out, our pride and fear hold us from the worship and the prayer and the response to Jesus that he wants from us. You see, his desperation out-dueled his pride. So his cries got even louder. They're like, be quiet, quiet. And he goes, oh yeah? Jesus, Son of David. Like he's louder. I mean, Jesus is on his way to the most important and significant historical moment ever. Jesus has been talking about his death. He knows what waits for him in Jerusalem. He's almost there. Do you think Jesus had a lot on his mind, an agenda, and heart? Do you think? I mean, Jesus is on a mission to save humanity. What's he going to do for one human? Verse 49. Jesus stopped the procession and said, call him over. So they called to the blind man. Cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you. The most churchy thing ever, right? You've been suffering your whole life. Hey, cheer up. Act right. It's Jesus. Take a shower, take a bath. Like, come on, get it straight. Can you imagine being Bartimaeus, though? Can you imagine this moment? You cried out for Jesus, and he saw you. He saw you, and he stopped everything. Call her here. Call him here. Well, how did he respond? Throwing his cloak aside, he was on his feet at once and came to Jesus. You got to catch this part. The beauty is in the details here. You see, there's a lot of scholarly work on the people of Jesus' time, on the culture, on the context of all these things, on the social and financial, all the stuff. And here's what a lot of them say. Bartimaeus, his cloak wasn't just a possession, it was his life. And some of the sages even state that this beggar's cloak was his lifeline. It was a uniform. It was everything. He didn't have different garments. He didn't go change. He wore this cloak every day. He was known by this cloak. I mean, locals who would pass by, even if he was asleep on the corner, wrapped in it, they would recognize that's Bartimaeus by his cloak. This is who he is. It identifies him. He would use this cloak to keep warm at night. He would use this cloak during the heat of the sun to not get scorched. He would use it when he needed privacy, even on the street corner. He would wrap it around himself to protect himself from bugs or storm. And you see, for an impoverished, homeless, blind beggar, this cloak was his only constant companion. It was probably the possession, the one thing he valued most. And what does he do with it when Jesus calls him? He casts it aside. Let's look deeper. He throws off the thing that has helped him most in his life. Bartimaeus casts away the symbol, the definition of his current life. He casts it aside because he's got something more important in front of him in that moment. Catch this. Bartimaeus is casting away his old life before he even gets the new one. Do you see the faith in this move? He's leaving behind an old way to make room for a new way. He's flinging aside the thing that's helped him cope in his dysfunction, but also held him captive in it. He's casting off his daily crutch to make room for true change. He's shedding his old uniform because he's about to be wrapped in new purpose. You see, time and time again in Jesus' ministry, he calls people. This is his thing. He said, come follow me. And you know what he did? He always calls them to drop something old and come pick up something new. For the disciples, he said, drop your nets. Drop your old life and drop your nets and come follow me. For the tax collector, it was a materialism and greed. For a broken woman, he asked her to leave her lovers and her lifestyle behind. For a successful man, he asked him to drop his constant desire for luxury. For many, he asks us again and again to drop our pride and our fear, to cast it aside and follow him. And Jesus still calls people to drop their old life so they can pick up a new one that he has for you. Today, there are some things that I would guess we are clinging to, each of us. Things that Jesus would ask us to cast aside so that he can fill our life with the freedom and purpose we long for. You see, but what happens? Let's be honest. Time and time again, we cling to our cloaks. We cling to our fishing nets. We hold on to our resources, careers, our pride, our fear, our sin, our private, pet, precious sin. And we passively hold on to it and just wish for life change. Many of us cling to every shred of our old life, just waiting for Jesus to give us a new one. Many of us grip onto the very things that are holding us back when Jesus is calling us to move forward into something new. What if God is asking you to throw aside the dysfunction of your old life in preparation for what he has for you? For some of us, it's to drop dysfunction for destiny. For others of us, you're holding on to something really good, but he has something greater. He's never going to force you. He's never going to force you. It's in your hand. He leaves the decision to you. Drop your nets. Drop that sin. My son, drop that. My daughter, let it go. Come follow me. But Bartimaeus, he made his decision, didn't he? It says he threw aside what held him back for the sake of a glory ahead. Bartimaeus is onto something here that I want us to catch and step into. What Bartimaeus shows us by this simple act is that he had an expectation that Jesus was going to do something. You got to see this. It's called faith. You see, you only cast aside your old cloak if you have an expectation you won't need it any longer, because you're going to get something new. You only leave your old life behind if in faith you have an expectation he's going to give you a new life ahead. Do you actually, truly have expectation that God can and will transform you? Do you? Do you have enough expectation that God can move in your life that you're willing to let some things go? Or are you going to kind of wait and see? And if he gives it to you, then we'll let it go. You see, oftentimes the blessing's on the other side of obedience. Drop that. My daughter, come. Leave that there. My son, let that go. Step into the blessing. Step into the life that I have for you. Throwing his cloak aside, he was on his feet at once, and he came to Jesus. And now here we have it. Here we have it. Bartimaeus is right there in front of Jesus. He's on that plot of ground, that only place on the planet that could bring him anything that he needs. He's right there. Jesus is likely looking right into the face of a man who can't look back at him. And Jesus says, "What can I do for you?" You gotta love Jesus. I had 2 pages I had to cut out right here. Because why does Jesus ask what he can do? He's blind. Of course he knows what he can do. Listen, can I just tell you something? Not every addict wants to stop doing what they hate the most. Not every person who wants to be healed is ready to let go of dysfunction. Not every spiritually blind person wants to let go of their blindness. What do you want me to do? Bartimaeus, he knows what he wants more than anything. I just think back to that story as I put myself in his shoes as a child laying in bed. His eyes couldn't see, but they could cry. And you know he did. And he would he utters to Jesus what he probably only whispered to his mom at bedtime. 4 words. I want to see. It may seem easy to say that. Can you imagine the courage it took to verbalize that? He's verbalizing an impossibility. He's verbalizing something that can only happen in the realm of miracle. Because life wears us down, doesn't it? And it grinds us down, and we get really used to our dysfunction and afflictions. We get comfortable in our vices. We hate them, we love them, we get comfortable in it. We get used to the things that define us. And if we're honest, those are the places we've probably given up hope. And verbalizing our deepest desire is often the hardest thing in the world because we don't even know if we hope it can change. It takes faith to verbalize that because you know you've failed 1,000,000 times over. You've been in this cycle. You've quit and you've started. You've tried to leave and you came back. Whatever it is. I want to see. Can you put yourself in this moment, this very tender moment, surrounded by a church, a crowd of people, and Jesus and a blind man? What do you want me to do? I want to see. Where are the places in your life you've given up hope? What is it? Because for some of us, the first miracle God wants to do is to give you hope and call you back to it so that you can remember that you can call out to the God of the universe who sees you, who knows you, and calls you to new life. You see, Jesus, you got to imagine standing there on this hot and dusty afternoon, surrounded by disciples and fakers and fans. He looks down into the hopeful yet sightless eyes of Bartimaeus, the blind man. And what does he say? Go. Your faith has healed you. And immediately, Bartimaeus received his sight. Bartimaeus' greatest hopes were answered right there in the presence of Jesus. After a lifetime of struggling and being defined by his weakness, Jesus changes his destiny in a heartbeat. Fully and completely healed. Fully and completely free. Can you imagine this moment? Can you imagine? When I go through a Bible account, I like to put myself in different people's points of view. And I'll be a disciple watching it. But then I'll be Bartimaeus, and I'll feel it. Can you imagine the overwhelming joy as he opens his eyes and sees. And Jesus says, go. Where does he go? Where's he going to go? Is he going to go see whoever's left of his family? Go find them? Is he going to go see the temple? I mean, he's a free man. Where does he go? Does he go back to the alley? Does he go back to his cloak? None of those things. He doesn't go to his family. He doesn't go get a job. He didn't go on with his life. Listen to what it says. Jesus said, go, your faith has healed you. And immediately he received his sight, and what? He followed Jesus down the road. The response to salvation isn't claiming to be a Christian. The response to salvation isn't becoming religious. The response to salvation is following Jesus, becoming like him, getting to know him, getting as close to him as you can. It looks like what Bartimaeus is responding with. In his utter joy, he follows Jesus. You see, for a lifetime, he longed to have the darkness break, to see light pour into his vision. He longed to see the world and maybe see the sights and the colors that he'd heard about, to see whatever family he has left, to see the temple, to see a sunset, to see the face of a loved one. But the first thing the eyes of Bartimaeus open to are what? Can you imagine? The first thing he saw was the smile and the eyes of his Savior. He saw Jesus. Jesus smiling. The first thing he saw was the one sight that puts everything in life in perspective. His eyes opened to Jesus. And this is the beauty of a true convert to Jesus. Immediately, spiritual drab old self replaced by new life as the Holy Spirit fills us. And the response is, I want to follow you the rest of my life. You gave me everything. I'm going to follow you the rest of my life. And so Bartimaeus, in a heartbeat, goes from beggar to disciple. Now imagine with me. It says they kept walking down the road. They have this moment, they hug maybe, and then Jesus, they have to keep going to Jerusalem, so they start walking. So you have Jesus, you got the disciples, you got the rest of them. And can you imagine, you're just somebody there in Jericho and you're watching the whole crowd and you see everybody. You could pick out Bartimaeus, couldn't you? You could go, that's the one. Because you could just see it all. Oh, can you imagine his smile? Where are we going? I don't care. Let's go. We're going. I mean, can you imagine the joy, the purpose, the peace? I mean, he's taking it all in. And here's the thing. Bartimaeus wasn't just saved from something. Bartimaeus is saved for something. And the same is true of you. You weren't called and saved just from your sin and from your stuff. You're called and saved for something, for a life, for followership. You are called and saved to live for the one who saved you. And how tragic would it be? How just so sad would it be if in this story it says Bartimaeus opened his eyes, was amazed, hugged Jesus. Whew, I now identify as a Christian. And he went back over and he put his cloak down and he sat back on it and asked for money. Hey, I can see now. You guys got any money? It looks really nice today. Beautiful weather we're having. Can I have some change? How sad, humorously, it's not so funny in our spiritual life. It's just not funny. So when Jesus does a work in our life, we have a moment of exhilaration. And before you know it, we're wrapped back in our old life again, panhandling for peace and begging for joy and approval of others. See, for many of us, we've been awakened to the reality of Jesus. He has done a work in us, and it is time to respond like Bartimaeus. And the only appropriate response is immediately, he followed Jesus. My prayer all morning has been on how to end this. This moment right here. What do I say here? I got nothing. You see, I believe that Bartimaeus he wants to lead us today. Because each of us are holding on to something. You are desperately holding on to something of your old life. And you may be even praying, worshiping, and wishing for God to do a new work. But you have not let go of your old life yet. And for some of us, it's very obvious. It's that pet secret sin that, oh man, it's terrible. I know exactly what it is. For some of us, it's not so obvious. It's more subtle. And for others of us, what you're holding on to is your old faith. You're a church veteran. You've been doing this for years. But you have not yet released what worked back then for the new work God wants you to have now. You can hold something good and miss out on something great. The faith it took to walk through the Red Sea for the children of Israel wasn't the faith they needed to walk into the promised land. And some of us are still walking with old faith, wondering, why is it like this? When God's saying, put that down. It's time for something new. It's time for you to step out in faith. It's time for you to step out in boldness. It's time for you to follow me in a new way. So what is it today that you need to let go of? From the obvious dysfunction, from the obvious things that are holding us back that we just can't stand, to the not so obvious things. Some of us are holding on to pride and fear. Pride and fear. We don't want to step out or step up because we're afraid of what people will think. We don't want to step up and step out, even in something like baptism, because our pride says, well, I should be past that by now. I'm not taking a public bath in front of the church. I get it. What is holding your faith back? Bartimaeus shows us that in our desperation, when we see what life change ahead, the purpose and calling he has for us, in our desperation, we'll get a little bit of crazo in us and say, Jesus, Jesus, save me. Jesus, do a new work in me. Jesus, give me purpose. Jesus, give me peace. Give me healing. Jesus, Jesus, see me. Have mercy on me. What are you holding on to? For some of us today, the only thing I can think of is that for many of us, the blessing is on the other side of the obedience. He is calling you to a blessed life and a blessed place. But I am so busy holding on to things of my past or that are working kind of for me in the present that I can't step into it. So as we go into worship, this song is so appropriate. It's called I Will Make Room for You. I want this to be your prayerful response. I want you in the spirit of Bartimaeus maybe to stand up and worship. Jesus, Messiah, I will make room for you. Maybe let go of your pride and fear of what people are thinking about you in a place like this and step into faith he's calling you to. Perhaps it is you need to come lay something down literally. I have been in church before where they have laid crack pipes and other things on the stage praying for a new life. I know I'm not. Maybe that is you. But regardless, what do you need to lay down? I'm going to have some pastors and prayer team in the back. I'm up here in the front. Let's worship. Let's have communion. Let's pray. Let's step into this. He has purpose and calling. Let's make room.